What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So let's listen to this as, once again, Blue Blood was correct. Let's just listen, shall we?
Smiling because, everyone's got an inside source. I'm not saying you. I'm just talking about social media in general. Everyone's got an inside source. Everyone's an expert. Everybody, has a source who's telling them exactly what's going on, none of which is accurate. Now, look, there's a budget process and there are...
Now, what you hear is the voice of Showtime President of Sports, Stephen Espinoza, being asked by Marcos Villegas. Shouts out to Fight Hub TV. Shouts out to Marcos Villegas. And shouts out to my brother Marcus Hayes at Fight Hub TV. Love those dudes. Love what Marco's doing. Love what Marcus Hayes is doing. Shouts out to Fight Hype and Fight Hub. Fight Hub TV. With that said, Marcos Villegas is interviewing Showtime President of Sports, Stephen Espinoza, and he's asking him about the rumors that PBC, Premier Boxing Champion, founding advisor Al Haymon, and his stable of fighters are exiting stage left. They're leaving Showtime. Showtime is getting out the sport of boxing. And as I told you guys, when I was talking about the Errol Spence-Terrence Crawford fight last year, that the budget wasn't there, listen to what Stephen Espinoza tells you, that they're dealing with issues with the budget. And then he lumps in. See, he can't just solely make it about and single out Showtime. He's going to lump in all the other platforms and say, we're going through the same issues everybody else is going through. Listen, but he's going to say that we're going through budget issues, as I told you guys.
Inside source. Everyone's an expert. Everybody, has a source who's telling them exactly.
He said everybody's an expert. Everybody has an inside source. A lot of people have inside sources that'll tell them a lot of different things. But I told you guys about the budget, and I told you guys about Showtime a year or two ago now. Right? And so now, Stephen Espinoza, he understands where there's smoke, there's fire. His job is not in jeopardy, but the sport of boxing on Showtime is in jeopardy. And now we're hearing big news, even from multi-division world champion, superstar, retired boxer Andre Berto, who just stated Al Haymon is a bad man. Stay tuned for what's to come. Now, why would Andre Berto announce such a thing? If something new coming, did Showtime just suddenly decide to give Al Haymon a massive budget? Or is Al Haymon, like we hearing, is taking his talents to a different platform? Like LeBron said, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. Al Haymon's getting ready to take his talents elsewhere. And Stephen Espinoza is confirming that Showtime has one foot in the sport of boxing and one foot out. Listen.
What's going on, none of which is accurate. Now
he's saying that all of these sources are not accurate. He can't stand there and tell you the roads is rocky and we're about to be on our way out. He ain't gonna do that because he's fighting to try to keep the sport of boxing in and with Showtime and Showtime's history and legends, right? Showtime has a history with the sport of boxing, and he's trying to keep it afloat. So he's not going to tell you things are getting rocky, but he's telling you without telling you. Keep listening.
Look, there's a budget process, and there are things to be discussed, and
There's a budget process, and there's things to be discussed. What is there to be discussed if the sport of boxing with Showtime is alive, well, and kicking and doing very well? They wouldn't be interested in discussing the budget. They have a yearly budget, but he's saying it as if Showtime has to discuss how much they want to keep on investing in sport of boxing, as I told you guys.
A media business that's a lot of transformation, and there's a Paramount Corporation that is under financial pressures. Like
he says, then there's Paramount that's under financial pressure, which means that they're going to make some cutbacks, and they're going to start with boxing because boxing is they're delving too much into it, shoveling too much into the sport of boxing and not getting enough out. Right? So Stephen Espinoza is saying nothing is accurate that he's hearing. We know it's accurate what you're hearing. You're just trying to salvage it, which you should be doing, because Showtime belongs in the sport of boxing. The history with Showtime and boxing is too rich to lose Showtime.
All media companies nowadays. So,
So he lumped all the media companies, networks, and platforms in, as he says, they dealing with issues.
All of that has to be discussed. But, all this stuff,
He says all of it has to be discussed. We didn't hear it being discussed 3 years ago. If there's not issues, then why would it have to be discussed? We didn't hear about it having to be discussed 3 years ago. So why does it have to be discussed now? Because when there's smoke, there's fire, and Showtime is leaning towards getting out the sport of boxing, like we've all heard. Okay?
Tanks going on this pay-per-view platform,
Now he's addressing, the short rumors that Tank Davis' next fight is going to be on Prime, Amazon Prime pay-per-view. Those are deflections, because we know that Showtime still has at least another 7 to 8 months, at the very least, to a year, that they still be in the sport of boxing. Nobody said that they're getting out the sport of boxing next month. So we know that Gervonta Tank Davis' next fight is more than likely going to be on Showtime pay-per-view. So he's addressing the short term. We know that Tank Davis is not leaving the sport of boxing immediately with Showtime. We already know that. So he's saying the rumors you're hearing that Tank Davis is going to another platform, his next pay-per-view, that's his next fight, which could possibly be in January. Showtime is not getting out the sport of boxing in January. It's the long run. How long are they staying in it for the long run? Stephen Espinoza knows exactly what we're talking about.
Tank's fighting Thurman, I know because,
Now he's saying, you see, again, deflection. Tank fighting Keith Thurman. Now he's talking about matchmaking. Not Showtime as a whole on this sport of boxing. Now he's deflecting again and talking about matchmaking. Keith Thurman, we knew that Keith Thurman and Tank Davis was not real. The platform that put that out, that it was a possibility. Now ESPN did report this and say it's a possibility or negotiations, but for the most part, we all knew that Tank Davis and Keith Thurman wasn't happening, especially at a catchweight. So we already knew that, right? This is deflection just to try to show you that people have been getting it wrong, and they're getting it wrong as far as Showtime goes with being in the sport of boxing.
I've been on conference calls and I know what's being said. I've yet to read anything that's accurate in terms of what's actually going on internally, in terms of the conversations and the kind of...
Well, nobody, unless they're actually sitting at the table with you, Stephen, when you're having these meetings, is going to be 100% accurate with what they're being told, what their sources are telling them. So you're the only one that's sitting at the table, and are you giving us 100% accurate information and feedback for what's going on at the table? No, because Stephen Espinoza is going around it. He keeps telling you, I don't want to get into this, I don't want to get into that. So he's doing the same thing that the sources do, telling you partials of what's going on behind the scenes.
Criteria that are being discussed and what are the kind of elements. So the reality is the future hasn't been determined yet.
Then he says the reality is the future has not been determined yet. But I thought the future wasn't up for discussion. You said the sport of boxing with Showtime, people have been saying this, it's been going out of business for years and it hasn't happened. Now you're saying the future is up for discussion. As I told you guys, the execs, the bigwigs at Showtime no longer have interest in keep delving into invest in the sport of boxing. Stephen Espinoza is trying to salvage that. He's trying to, I told you guys, they didn't have the budget last year for all these big fights. Not that Showtime doesn't have the money, they're just not interested in spending it in the sport of boxing. That's why you only saw the big fighters fight once last year, and they didn't have the budget to give Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. As I told you guys, this year they gave him a different budget. Now you're seeing all these mega fights with mega undercards happening. That's not a coincidence. And now Steven Espinoza is saying that the future has to be discussed, and it still hasn't been determined. Why? Because Showtime, again, is not very interested in the sport of boxing, and he's doing his best to convince them to stay in the sport of boxing.
I think it will be shortly. And
he says that he thinks there will be a decision made shortly on the future of the sport of boxing with Showtime. Well, that's what everybody is telling you, that the sport of boxing and Showtime could be done in 2024 is the last year. So now he's saying that, and he just told you that Showtime is going to make a decision very shortly whether they're staying in the sport of boxing or not. And now I'm hearing that Dazn is willing to give Al Haymon $1 billion budget or more for his stable to bring the PBC fighters and the PBC to Dazn. As I told you guys, that was a strong possibility that they would go to Dazn because Dazn has the funds. Dazn operates as an umbrella. That's why they have Golden Boy under Dazn. That's why they have a Matchroom with Eddie Hearn under Dazn. And now they want to bring PBC to Dazn. And now I'm hearing that they got $1 billion budget or more to give to Al Haymon for his fighters and the PBC. Now, Amazon Prime is still in the running, but I'm hearing that Dazn is willing to pay $1 billion or more for the PBC and Al Haymon's fighters to come over there. And Showtime, as Steven Espinoza just told you, has yet to make a decision whether they're staying in the sport of boxing or not. Listen again.
Criteria that are being discussed and what are the kind of elements. So the reality is the future hasn't been determined yet. I think it will be shortly. But
the future with Showtime has not been determined yet, and I think it will shortly. And that's all I got for y'all. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. That's all I got for y'all. I'm gone. Peace.